Hello everyone. In this series of initial videos, I'll introduce you to the idea of operations management. We'll talk about what is operations management, the idea of goods and services, how they are different from each other, and we'll talk about productivity. That's the gist of what we are going to cover from this chapter. In this particular video, we'll be talking about basics of operations management. What is operations management? Right. So before we define operations management, we have to define the idea of production. Production, as you might imagine, is the creation of goods or services. This is just a basic production. And operations management is a set of activities that creates values in the form of goods and services by transforming outputs into inputs. So the reason I read the whole thing out, even though you can see it on the screen, is because it's important for you to understand each of the different parts of the definition of operations management, right? First of all, you're looking at production of goods and services, or the creation of goods and services. You're not just looking at how the goods and services are created, but also what kind of value is created by these goods and services, right? So you're not just taking raw aluminum and transforming it into a plane. So you are not just doing that, you're also creating value in that. Raw aluminum will not take you up into the air, but when you create a plane and the plane has everything else in it and a good pilot, it will take you up into the air, right? So there is some extra value that gets added by these transformations. And that's what operations management is. How efficiently can we manage this transformation from all the various inputs that go into the process that you're managing and looking at the outputs? You could think of this as, well, making burgers at McDonald's, right? And how efficiently do you do it? There's a famous movie about McDonald's, and the story about McDonald's, about how they created the most efficient process out there. And the whole idea there was creating value by transforming inputs into outputs and doing it in a very efficient way. And that is what operations management is, right? So one good example of operations management that the textbook uses, and so I'm going to talk about, is operations management at Hard Rock Cafe. So Hard Rock Cafe, the first cafe opened in 1971, but now they have 27 hotels, 180 restaurants, and 11 casinos around multiple 75 countries around the world. They not just sell, you not only go there for food, but you also can buy and see rock memorabilia. They have live bands playing. They sell out sometimes because some really famous bands are playing. And how does a particular item get on a menu? Sometimes menu in Orlando is different from the menu in Philadelphia. How do these different menus get managed, right? What is the role of operations manager in a restaurant like that? That's an interesting thing to think about. What are all the different things that go into it? And that is partly what we'll talk about today. What is the role of an operations manager? A full-fledged operations manager, what are the things that they manage? It's important for you not just to know, well, in the context of class in operations management that you're taking, but maybe you're thinking about getting a degree in operations, and you might want to know, or you're thinking about becoming an operations manager, and you might want to know, what does that entail, right? So we'll talk a little bit about that in this video. Right. So the three essential functions when you talk about any big company. Your finance, accounting is of course everything to do with money and how it is managed. Then your marketing, that's the part that generates demand, and production and operations, which are the part that creates the product or service that you're doing. So, and as you will see with the numbers that we look at later, production and operations tend to be a much larger portion of the essential functions of a company than everything else, because anything that isn't marketing or isn't finance or accounting is production or operations, right? So, and that encompasses everything else. And so that tends to be a much larger block of a company's revenue, profits, costs even, right? So here are some organizational charts. I will scroll through these. You can look at them. So the way a commercial bank is managed, the way an airline is managed, manufacturing facilities, and so on. Now, this course, the course that for which I'm making these videos, is a course on operations and supply chain management. What is the role of supply chains, right? So operations is how you manage these transformational activities within a single company, while supply chain is all the companies that are involved in transforming raw materials into finished products, right? So there are many companies. So the example that you see here is, say, maple syrup, right? The farmer, then the syrup producer, the bottler, the distributor, and finally the retailer is the person selling the maple syrup to you, right? And that's the whole idea. There are multiple companies involved. And how do these companies talk to each other? How do these companies, efficiently manage their relationship with each other so that they can make the best out of what they do? That is what supply chain is. And we will talk about supply chain more in more detail later on in later videos and later on the semester that I talk about. But right now, this is what a supply chain is, right? An operation is within a single company. Supply chain is how companies talk to each other and how companies manage their relationships with each other, right? So why should we study OM? So like I said, it's a big part of any company, and there are lots of jobs out there for OM. Right, and this is what I was talking about. So if you look at what percentage of a company's sales or cost of goods or anything that you look at, if you have the option of putting money in one of these three to see how your contribution increases, you'll always notice that the operations contribution is always higher than the other contributions, right? So what do operations managers do? So if you are going to be an operations manager, or if you're looking to get a job as an operations manager, these are the different functions. You might not be leading all of these functions or working in all of these functions, but you will be working in one of these functions, right? So planning. So what kind of products to make, what kind of services to offer. There's planning that goes into it. Actually organizing the plans once they are made. And staffing it with people, making sure that everything happens by leading in the right way, and of course, controlling the process once the process is in motion. These are all the different things that operations managers do. And like I said, when you're at starting off at the basic level, you won't be doing all of them. You'll probably be starting in one place, and slowly as you rise up, you will take on more roles as an operations manager, right? So this is the layout in the textbook. I'm not going to spend much time in it, but there are 10 strategic decisions that are part of operations management. One is how you design goods and services. Like I said, the planning part. Then how do you manage the quality of production and also quality of how you serve your customers, right? Then process strategies, location strategies, layout strategies, human resources, work measurement, supply chain management, inventory management, scheduling and maintenance, right? And we obviously will not have time to cover all of this in the semester. In fact, out of these 10, you will be covering about 4 or 5 of them through the semester. Through the semester, we'll be talking about a little bit of the design of goods and services. We'll talk a lot about process strategies and location strategies, definitely supply chain management, inventory management, and if time permits, we'll do a little bit of scheduling and maintenance. And that's essentially how it is laid out. Now, if you look at the syllabus has more information on that, right? Okay, so these are the 10 strategic decisions: design of goods and services, managing quality, process strategies, layout strategies, location strategies, human resources, supply chain, inventory, scheduling and maintenance, right? So about 40% of all jobs, like I was saying, are all operations management jobs, and they contribute to these 10 strategic decisions. And these are the educational background. So here's a good idea of why you should be studying operations management, why operations management is important. And here are some of the certifications that you can get as an operations manager or as a project manager, right? Now, this is where I'm going to end this video. So this is the basic idea of what is operations management, why is it important for us to study operations management, and what are the different roles that an operations manager takes, right? In the next video, we'll be talking about what is a good, what is a service, what is the difference between goods and services, and how does operations management vary when you're managing goods versus when you're managing services, right? That's for the next video. I'll see you all there. Take care.